Good evening. Welcome to On the Road with me, Nigel Farage. Tonight I am in Doncaster. Yep, another 70% Leave constituency represented by Ed Miliband is one of the local MPs here, and of course an out and out Remainer, somebody who completely regrets the result of the referendum, and of course is standing on a Labour ticket of wanting the people in Doncaster to vote again in a second referendum with a completely bent choice of Remain versus a form of Remain. Now, it's the same old story. These seats have always been Labour. The Conservatives are absolutely nowhere in these constituencies. I could tell today, going out round the market, going into one of the Wetherspoons pubs, but just going out talking to people, there's no doubt, no doubt. In fact, the guy in the fish and chip shop really told me, he says, I have a lot of customers here, Mr. Farage. He said, a lot of these Labour people are going to vote for the Brexit Party. A lot of these Labour people are probably going to stay at home because they just don't see Jeremy Corbyn as being prime ministerial material. The issue with us in these seats is going to be the Conservative vote. We've got to let the Conservatives know. The Conservatives have never won here, will never win here. If they vote Conservative, they're not just wasting their vote, they are splitting the Leave vote. In seats like this, if we can get those Conservatives to vote for us, I think we can get over the line, despite the fact these are very big Labour majorities. Now, the story of the day is Andrew Neil. Andrew Neil, so far, dominating the election because his interview with Nicola Sturgeon 2 nights ago had her in some real trouble. And the interview last night with Jeremy Corbyn, well, I think most people feel that it was a catastrophe, and even the internal comments we've seen from the Labour machine indicate that that was the case. Remember, this followed on from his big race and faith announcement, which had been seriously hit that morning with the chief rabbi coming out and saying that Jews were fearful if there was a Labour victory. And last night, Andrew Neil majored on the anti-Semitism row, and talked about the retweet of the Jewish bankers playing Monopoly and carving up the world. Of course, we've also seen Jeremy Corbyn attending the Palestinian Martyrs Cemetery, where one of the people there had been the mastermind of the 1972 Olympic plot in Munich, where, of course, Jewish Israeli athletes have been tortured and murdered. I mean, a whole litany of things, not to mention, of course, the fact that Corbyn in the past has called Hezbollah and Hamas his friends. And on 4 occasions, he gave Jeremy Corbyn the opportunity to apologise, and Corbyn refused to do so. And he really is getting some serious stick over that. Other issues, Andrew Neil going through their taxation policy, and it would appear that Jeremy Corbyn did not have a mastery of the detail. So who's next for the treatment? Well, Boris Johnson. But there are rumours tonight that Boris may not go and face Andrew Neil. He is, without doubt, the most feared interviewer. I'll be going on with Andrew Neil on the 5th of December, so no doubt I'll get a whole load of difficult questions. But I do feel, even in difficult situations, that what I'm saying from the heart. What I'm saying because I actually believe in, and I think that does give me something of an advantage, although never get complacent before you're interviewed by Andrew Neil. I remember in the referendum campaign being interviewed by him and kind of thinking at the end, well, thank goodness that's over, because everybody feared it. So we'll watch over the next few days and see what Boris does. Big poll coming out at 10 o'clock tonight. It's a YouGov poll. It'll be 10,000 people across the UK, and they will then try and superimpose that constituency by constituency to give their prediction for the election. In 2017, it was quite accurate. It did suggest that Mrs May was going to lose seats. So people are looking tonight to see what this poll says. My guess is it will show Boris getting a majority of 30 seats, 40 seats, whatever it is. But be cautious. The reason I say that is the 2017 election was completely, certainly in England, a 2-horse race. Labour and the Conservatives taking the high 80s in terms of percentage shares of the vote. It's not like this time. The Liberal Democrats are on higher numbers. The Brexit Party then hadn't even been born. So we'll see at 10 what it has to say. But, please don't take it as gospel. The picture is very different. And actually, in this general election, what you've got are a whole series of by-elections going on in many, many of the seats. Now, your questions. Keith on Facebook asks me, Wish the NHS buy-off was put to bed. We need to know, as it will put people off voting for you. It's a worry. This is Jeremy Corbyn and Labour basically saying, well, the Brexit Party want to sell off the NHS and privatise it. We don't at all. All I've suggested is if wealthier people were encouraged to take out their own insurance, we might lift the burden of weight off the NHS. In fact, some people are doing that and making those choices already. Now, we want a well-funded, decent National Health Service. Of course we do. We're just very sceptical about the ways in which money often gets spent. And the other great Corbyn line is that Donald Trump, there's going to be a trade deal. Donald Trump will buy the NHS. And today he produced this 451-page dossier saying there's the proof that Trump will buy the NHS. Well, in the whole document, there were two references to the NHS, one of which said that it must be protected. And it's just conspiracy theory. It's mad, crazy stuff. Just re-listen to me talking to Donald Trump on LBC a few weeks ago. He made it clear the health service is not even part of a trade negotiation. And I think what it says to me is he's getting a bit desperate, promising money, of course, for the waspy women. And indeed, Alison picks this up on Facebook and says, Labour will never buy my vote with their pension thing. They can't afford it anyway. So, 1995, a piece of legislation came in that said the retirement age for women would change and it would be phased in from 2010 to 2020. The cost of reversing a 24-year-old piece of legislation would be £58 billion, and people like Theresa May would finish up better off by at least £20,000. I think there is an argument that for those who'd planned and been hit by real hardship, we should help them, but you can't just reverse a piece of legislation from 24 years ago. And in Labour's case, it wasn't even in their manifesto, it was an afterthought. Again, another sign, in my opinion, of just absolute desperation. Ash on YouTube says, hello Nigel, just read that Barnier is sticking his nose into our election and running our country. Well, we should be used to this. So Barnier really playing tough man. Barnier saying to us, the trade negotiation will never be agreed next year. It ain't going to happen. This could go on for years and years. And they're already saying that they want the French particularly want the British fishing industry to be put in, and they won't even contemplate a trade deal with us until we effectively surrender what is ours, our 200-mile limit in the North Sea. Now, I said I'm in Doncaster, and for me, this is a little bit of a trip down memory lane, because some of you may know that before politics, I had a proper job. No, I did, really. I worked in the metals industry, and I had clients in the United Kingdom, indeed in Italy, who manufactured cable. They've nearly all disappeared. We're going to find out some of the reasons why a lot of those firms have closed down, because I'm actually broadcasting tonight here from Doncaster Cables, which is, I believe, the last manufacturer of cable in this country. And joining me to talk about this is a veteran, if I can call him that, of the cable industry, Chris Marlinson from Doncaster Cables. Chris, thank you and welcome to the show this evening. So I remember when I started in business, 1982, there were quite a lot of cable manufacturers in the country, and you are, am I not right, the last one?
We're the last British, yeah. All the BICCs, the Deltas, all those cable companies have gone, and we're the only cable company that manufacture the whole of the general wiring cable range, and the last British-owned company.
Now, some would say that with a changing world of modernisation, inevitably, if the United Kingdom is producing goods that are too expensive, they're always going to suffer from foreign competition. Are you suffering from fair competition?
No, without doubt we're not. I mean, foreign competition is fine if it's on a level playing field with ours. They have costs that we don't incur, that's transportation costs.
Yeah.
So what they do, they make the cables cheaper by putting less copper in, by not putting the right compound in, generally by not meeting the standards or not being compliant with the British or European standards. And that reflects on the costs that they incur, which reflects on the prices. But those cables are in the marketplace. They are either fraudulent, not compliant, or dangerous. And we've got many examples of cables that are dangerous and lethal that are in the marketplace but we can't get any real action. We want legislation to try and prevent this from happening, because people can bring these products in without any real check. We talk about having CPRs and standards, but they're not policed. So people can bring these products in, put them into the marketplace, and Joe Public can be a casualty because of it. And nobody seems to have any interest in protecting the British public.
But this legislation, as members of the European Union, would have to be EU legislation, wouldn't it? Because you're governed, as everybody is, by European law, European competition standards.
Yes, well, we've contacted members of Parliament, and the answer we got is that it's really against competition rules. So we can't do anything about it, which I find very strange when we can't protect our own public.
Well, some would argue that's why people did vote Brexit, so that we can. Just give me an example. I mean, for example, a country that runs its own affairs, America. I mean, how does America deal with an issue like substandard product coming into their market?
America has legislation, and the legislation clearly states that if products that are distributed or supplied into the US that do not meet the recognised standards, there is a significant penalty. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's either $15–18 million.
Right, a real penalty.
A real penalty.
Yeah.
So it stops the distributors from bringing products in that are not compliant. Now, we don't have anything like that. What I would like to see is that if people are found to bring products in that are not compliant, they get a warning. If they do it again, they get further action, and ultimately a final penalty if they continue to do it, because they are continuing to do it. We've got samples of cables that go back over the past 10 years that were non-compliant, and it's not got any better. Well, it's got marginally better, but marginally better only because of action that we took through the Approved Cable Initiative. But now we're still suffering from it, and we can't compete with conductor sizes that are half what they should be, that overheat the cable or allow the cable to overheat. We can't compete with that. So we stick with a quality product. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the UK want quality product, but a lot of others just buy on price.
And I, by the way, went round the factory. I've been round with Chris, and I've looked at some of these substandard products, including ones that are going into buildings to deal with fire hazard. And I'm going to show you tomorrow some video of our trip earlier. Well, I'm hoping that with Brexit, one of the things that we will get back is our own competition rules, our own competition policy. And I think then, perhaps then you could quite effectively lobby MPs to say, look, in the name of safety, in the name of good British jobs, let's put some UK law in place. But as a firm that buys and sells goods, with Europe and around the world, what problems does Brexit pose to you, or does it potentially give opportunities?
I think it gives opportunities. The big opportunity it gives us to control our own destiny. And, we can control what we want to do in the UK. I think also people want to buy quality products, and the British name is still very good. So I've no fear, quite honestly, of losing the European market on cable, if we were to, and I don't believe we would. So I think it gives us opportunities.
Interesting. So you see, when you hear folks, the voice of business, you get the CBI. And they're put up as being British business. They're actually mostly foreign companies that employ overall in the economy fewer than 10% of people who are working in private companies. It is actually the risk takers, the entrepreneurs, the Chris's of this world. Actually, you go out and talk to them and you find this word again and again, opportunity. Don't believe the big bully boys who are trying to frighten you out of us getting back our independence. Chris, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I'm off to Hull, where I'm going to join Michelle Dewberry, our star candidate. She's campaigning in the city where she was born and bred. Back with you tomorrow at 6 p.m.